Hey guys, I'm Ronan. Welcome back to the channel. Today I wanted to make a video on what are the best switch axes you can make in game for everything: paralysis, poison, element, exhaust, power file, and so on. We all know the Artian weapons, if you get a perfect roll, will be the best pretty much no matter what, but there are some very solid monster choices as well that are arguably really strong and something you can utilize until you can actually get the perfect roll Artian weapon that you wish. Now, before we start, I do want to state Artian weapons, because they all have three-slot decorations. No matter what you roll on them, for the most part, they're probably going to be better than the monster weapons, but there are still some good contenders. So let's start off talking about power file paralysis here. There's only really two paralysis weapons you can make from monsters, and one of them isn't even a power file, and we'll talk about that shortly. But right now on screen, you can see I have a perfect roll paralysis weapon. I'm almost Hunter rank 300 and I still have some weapons I need to get perfect rolls for, so it is a grind. But this here has three-slot decorations, so I can get crit boost rank 5 and power enhancer rank 3, which is, in my opinion, a must-have if you're rocking a power file. The Lalabarina weapon has a ton of white sharpness, has more white sharpness than this weapon. It's a power file, 15% base crit, but look at the damage and attack, 225 versus 200. That's a significant amount of damage you will lose out on for a little bit of extra crit. And if you build your build correctly, you can get around 75% base crit, almost to 100%, depending on if you run agitator or not during when monsters are in rage. So that extra 15% chance to crit doesn't really make up for the amount of raw that you're losing, because you can already get such a high crit chance anyway. The abilities on this, crit draw and crit status, aren't that great. Crit draw is terrible for switch axe, and crit status doesn't matter in my opinion. It's only rank 1, and you already have so much paralysis on this weapon anyway that it's going to proc regardless. Now, this is a power file though, so when you're in amp state, you get additional raw damage added to your attacks. There is another switch axe, the one you get from Kangalanga, if I said his name right, the ape. This is a paralysis file. Now, the difference with this is paralysis files and poison files as well, they're their own special file type. You can see there is no base status on this weapon. See, I have 80 paralysis on my weapon I have equipped now. Well, this one doesn't have any. When you're in amp state, that's when you'll start to add paralysis to your attacks. It's 200 paralysis, so it's the same amount of paralysis as the Lalabarina. Has definitely more raw attack for sure. A 3-slot, 2-slot, and 1-slot. The skills, again, draw skills for switch axe are terrible. Which one should you use? The Lalabarina wins out. The Lalabarina is so much better than this one, although it will take a little bit longer to get in amp state because paralysis files get in amp state really quick. The Lalabarina one with a power file will make up the damage, the extra crit, and has a ton of more white sharpness. I think Lalabarina is better than this one. Now let's go ahead and compare other weapons now. What about poison? Alright, so for poison, we already know how good the Artian weapons are. I think it's okay for us not to talk about them going forward with how strong they can be. So let's go ahead and compare the only two real poison monster weapons you have in game. So you have the Rathian poison switch axe, which is an element file. So what that means is when you're in amp state, because this already has base poison on the weapon, when you get into amp state, it will add additional poison buildup to your attacks in sword mode. It has crit status rank 3, and it has poison duration rank up. So in my opinion, if you're going for a 4-ray build, which I did use for a while, and I would like to use in the future if the builds allow it, this is the go-to poison switch axe in my opinion. It has a decent amount of crit, okay amount of raw, but having the crit status and poison duration up is really strong for any 4-ray builds. And compare it to the other poison-esque monster switch axe here, which is the one you can just make from doing ores and stuff, the chrome weapon. This isn't a element file switch axe, it's a poison file. So you have to get into amp state in order to actually get the poison to actually start the proc. Element and poison, I mean, the poison file will get you into amp state slightly faster, and it does have rapid morph, which is nice. But in my opinion, I would rather have the Rathian one if you're going for a 4-ray poison build. If not, then why are you using poison in the first place? You'd be better off going with blast or paralysis, in my opinion, right now with the current monsters we have available. Alright guys, it's time to talk about power files in general. Which power file switch axe is the best to use? We know the Artian one, in my opinion, is the best because you can get the most amount of damage from it. However, with monster weapons, it's got to be the Brutus Abolishment. Brutus's Abolishment is so good. It's a rank 8 power prolonger rank 3 built-in switch axe. That means when you're in power Phial amp state, it will last for, I think, what, 90 seconds if it's correct in wilds now. That's insane. That is really, really powerful comparing it to not having it. You have a rank 3 decoration slot, rank 2, and rank 1. So normally you would need a rank 3 slot just to get power prolonger rank 3 in general. Well, now you don't need to do that. You can use your rank 3 slot for crit boost, your rank 2 for crit boost, and have a rank 1 slot to use for whatever you want. So you can still make all the same meta builds that everyone makes with Artian weapons using this weapon, which makes it very, very powerful. Comparing it to all the other power Phial ones though, you have, in my opinion, a couple of good contenders. So you have the first one here, you get kind of like the base hunter one, power Phial, ton of white sharpness, and a crit eye too, so you can get a little bit more crit with this weapon. Speed sharpening, I mean, that's okay. Not that big of a deal, in my opinion. But again, because this doesn't have power prolonger built in, you can't get all the stuff that you need decoration wise. There's no way for you to get rank 3 power prolonger and crit boost at the same time. So already this is inferior. Now compare this to the new Udra power Phial switch axe. It has 220 base raw, so slightly more raw. Has fire element, which you don't really care all that much if you're going for power Phial right now anyway. It has rapid morph rank 3, which can be useful. It's a nice quality of life thing. But again, no power prolonger and no crit boost. So you can't get crit boost rank 5 and power prolonger rank 3 that you need for most meta builds. Will it do more damage? No, I don't think it will, because it has a negative 15% crit added to it. So you have to make up for that. So already you're at a disadvantage. Will your normal raw hits hit harder? Yeah, but if you're building for a crit boost build, which is meta right now, this just isn't going to do it. Now, we do have another switch axe, which in my opinion is very, very strong and is arguably a good contender as well. The Flesh Hacker Yeogahak, if I said that correctly, I probably butchered that name. It's a power Phial and has power prolonger rank 3. So very, very strong. Here's the downside. It has a negative 5% crit chance, which isn't that big of a deal because you could put like one crit in there and get an extra 4% anyway. What makes this worse is the fact that it has innate blue sharpness, no innate white sharpness, and you get a higher modifier for physical and elemental damage in white sharpness compared to blue sharpness. So that 230 raw attack doesn't matter when you have no way of getting to white sharpness. Yeah, you could put handicraft in, but when you do that, you can't get the other skills that you want to enhance your damage even more. So this loses out. All right, so of course you have the Arcveld one. Again, higher raw. It has negative affinity though. No power prolonger. It does have focus rank 2, which arguably could be useful depending on whether you like focus or not. But no innate white sharpness. It has 2 rank 3 decoration slots, which is useful. But again, it's not going to give you all the skills that you want. And it's blue sharpness, so already inferior again. Now, I do want to talk about the Rathian one here, because this one has crit boost rank 3 built in, which is actually pretty useful. So this is another alternative you could use. It has 10% crit versus 200 raw, and then the other one has 210 raw and 0% crit. So this one is another one you could utilize if you want, and if you're fighting a monster that is weak to fire, this is a good weapon to use over the water one. Reason being is you have crit boost rank 3, so using a level 2 decoration slot, you have crit boost rank 5. You can use your rank 3 decoration slot for power prolonger rank 3, and then you have a level 1 decoration slot to use for whatever you want. So this is a good contender if you compare it to monsters weak to fire. Anything if you're just going for base raw though and you don't care about elemental damage at all, it's going to be really up to you. Slightly less damage, but higher crit chance. And again, you can get almost 100% crit regardless with most builds now. So it's going to be up to you. But this is a good one to use against monsters that are really weak to fire. I would use this, for example, on Gormagala, since he's weak to fire, if you don't have the Artian weapon yet. And that leads us to our last power Phial here that I want to talk about, the Gormagala weapon. I mean, this thing's sick looking. It's a scythe, so that alone already gives it kudos in my book. It has crit element rank 3, which Crit element, I don't know if it's bugged or if it's just trash right now. Some people are reporting they get like 0 damage increase. Some people tested and got like only like 1 or 2 more damage with crit element rank 3. So hopefully elemental values get fixed later on. So right now, because of that, I can't recommend this switch axe. It has a ton of white sharpness and 20% affinity. So that is something to keep in mind. You could build for less crit in your builds and add some like other skills instead. But again, rank 3, rank 2 to rank 1 slot, and it doesn't have the main skills you would want with crit boost or power prolonger. So no matter what, you can't get all the skills that you want anyway. I do want to talk about exhaust as well. There's only one exhaust Phial weapon in game, the Bone Smasher. This thing is useful, and I'm certainly hoping once, you know, whenever G rank comes out, I'm sure this weapon will be substantially better because it will get the white sharpness. But this thing here, exhaust Phials are really good and really bad. Guardian monsters actually don't even take exhaust damage, so already exhaust Phials on them feel kind of useless. Exhaust Phials build up their gauge really quickly, so having focus rank 3 on exhaust Phials does absolutely nothing for you. You have like almost no benefit from it, since you can get into amp state so quick anyway. It does have attack boost rank 1, which is nice, but again, it's a 3 slot, 2 slot, and 1 slot, so you can't really get all the skills that you would want for any meta builds if you're going for maximum damage. So this one here, it's nice to have, yeah. Is it going to be the best? No. Can you use it though? I mean, this is really nice against like Tempered Arc build and other things like that, but the damage wise will be substantially less than all the other switch axes we've talked about currently. Okay guys, so I want to talk about elemental switch axes now. I made an elemental endgame build previously that I was really hoping was going to be better than it is right now. Unfortunately, Raw is king. I'm an elemental fan, and I always think elemental weapons should be doing more damage than Raw anyway, since it's monster specific with their weaknesses. So hopefully elemental values later on get fixed, or we get some new skills to help it out. But if you are going for an elemental Phial, they charge up faster than power Phials, and they just give you additional elemental damage in amp state. There's 2 different fire ones, the Rathalos one versus the Saul Bill Axe, which is the Kuliku, if I said his name right. Kuliku has base blue sharpness, which is a downfall. Although it has more fire element and more raw attack, the blue sharpness kind of holds it back. Taking a look at the other one though, you have an elemental Phial, you have 15% affinity, crit element rank 1, and Master's Touch. Master's Touch is okay for switch axe. That being said, which one should you use? Honestly, it's going to be how you build it. If you would find any type of decorations you want to add to this that give handicraft, then automatically I think the Saw Bill Axe would be a little bit better. But if you don't want to do that and you just want to add decorations that just straight give you damage, the Blaze Splitter is going to be better. Although the white sharpness is only a tiny bit, Master's Touch will help that out if you are going for a crit build. And looking at lightning, there's only one elemental lightning switch axe you can make that isn't Artian, and that is going to be the Anjanath one. Has crit element rank 3, which is okay. I mean, we talked about how bad crit element is previously. I wish it was better. But this has blue sharpness, so already having no innate white sharpness is a downfall. 210 raw, 15% affinity, and 250 thunder. This is just inferior to the Artian weapons in every single way. It is so much worse. To compare that here, I do have my... Oh, not that one. Where's it at? My perfect roll Artian weapon here. So this is my dragon one that I got a ton of elemental damage for, like a perfect roll that I showcased in a previous video. This thing is just going to be superior because of all the elemental damage. If you're going for elemental damage, you want to hit their elemental weaknesses. It says innate white sharpness and 3 level 3 decoration slots. It's just better. Looking at ice, there's only one ice elemental switch axe you can use, and this one is actually fairly decent. It has 220 raw attack, which is pretty high for an elemental switch axe that has innate white sharpness. 200 ice attack. It has focus rank 3, which again, you get your amp state so fast with anything that's not a power Phial that focus isn't worth it. I don't even use focus in my power Phial builds anyway because I can't afford it. And it has airborne, which who cares about that? That is such a minor bonus that you'll hardly notice it, but it's the only elemental ice switch axe you can use right now. Of course, you have the Arcveld Guardian Switch Axe. This one is just probably the best elemental switch axe you can make that is an Artian for dragon damage, 250 dragon, base white sharpness, 220 raw, and it has focus rank 3, which again isn't that strong, but it's the one you should make. I did want to talk about one switch axe, which is in its own category, the Gore Hacker Urga Hack, if I said that correctly. It's the only dragon Phial switch axe in game right now. What this means is when you're in amp state, you will have 400 dragon element added to your sword attacks. Sword attacks are what give you the additional damage in amp state. Focus rank 2 is completely useless for this. It's such a bad ability for this because every type of switch axe that isn't power amped type of switch axe, like power Phial, they gain your amp state so quick, especially dragon Phials, so having focus on this just feels useless. It has 250 raw attack, which does seem pretty high. Here's the downside. There's no innate white sharpness. The innate modifier that you have for having white sharpness is going to be so much like have high value compared to only having raw attack. So this is actually going to be doing less damage than you think. And it has negative 15% affinity. So this weapon is one I cannot recommend. All right, I want to talk about elemental switch axes now, specifically like power versus elemental. We know power switch axes are just going to give you more damage if you go for the meta builds. They're just that strong. Elemental switch axes, like some of the builds I had on my channel, give you a little bit more quality of life. So you do keep that in mind. And I'm hoping later on Element gets a buff because I do think Element should be the stronger type of switch axe. But let's compare these two here because these are two very similar switch axes. So which one should you use? Well, they both are Power Prolonger rank 3, so you automatically get a rank 3 decoration slot you would normally use for free. One has innate white sharpness, one doesn't. One has 240 raw and 250 water, while the other one has 210 raw and 180 water. So let's go ahead and compare the difference here for damage wise without any like crit boosts and stuff like that. Both of these have no decorations. And you can see with the power Phials, it does take a little bit of more time to get into amp state. So of course, you know, this is without any of my build stuff going. It's just testing out the damage normally you would do. And it's okay damage. I mean, it definitely could be better. All right, so let's compare it to the Elemental Phial one now. And remember, the Elemental Phial one has no white sharpness built in. Look how quick that goes, though. For element, that is very, very fast. That's why you don't need focus for any type of Phial that isn't power. And you can see right now, it's still hitting some decent numbers because of all the extra raw that it has with the element. So it is still hitting decently hard. This is a very good switch axe to use. Now, this is without any actual skills, though. So what happens when I actually put the skills that you want in for your type of builds? So taking a look at my stuff here, I put more attack decorations in this one because this has, you know, negative crit chance. There's no way for me to make up for that with the builds that I like running. So I figured adding more attack to this would be better. And I added one crit decoration in there just to help out for the negative crit chance, bringing it to a negative 11%. While the other one I gave full crit boost and a rank 1 attack decoration. So we can compare the numbers versus that. And I will go ahead and actually put on my training settings. We'll go ahead and put Gormagala stuff on. This is the current build I like using. I like the Gormagala 4-piece because it gives you so much more raw compared to other stuff. All right, so I'm in amp state now. So let's go ahead and test out the numbers. You can see how inconsistent the crit is though, because I had that negative crit chance there, which is a little unfortunate, which is why we're going to switch to the other one next. Still hits decently hard though for only having blue sharpness though, which is pretty nice. All right, so now let's switch on over to this switch axe. All right, now that I'm in amp state, let's go ahead and attack. And you can see the difference in numbers already. Look how much higher you hit with this weapon, which is pretty insane. I could put the crit boost decorations in the other one as well, but your crit chance is already going to be so much lower that it's really not going to be worth it. So in the end, I think the power one wins out. Hey guys, Future Ronin here. I realized with this switch axe that has the blue sharpness, you'd be better off getting to white sharpness with handicraft instead of attack. I tested it out later on, and I still think the power Phial switch axe is better. And all of these, however, are just inferior to the Artian weapons, unfortunately. Anyway, guys, this video, I'm not sure how long it is. I'll have to cut it and see. Hopefully it's not too long. I'm Ronin. Like and subscribe if you're new. And I am working on my switch axe tips and tricks video. It has some cool basic knowledge things and some more in-depth things and even some like monster tips as well. See you next time.